Well, hello. Today we have a Devar Torah, a reading of a words of Torah of Rav Zvi Kushlevsky on the Torah. Rav Zvi Kushlevsky on the Torah. We've done already one from him. This is from the Parsha of Beshalach, from last week's Torah reading. That's last week's Torah reading. So anyway, let's get to it. Hold on a second. So, we have here, he's talking about Parshas Beshalach, the opportunity for Mitzvos. This is, one should do Mitzvos when one gets the opportunity, and here we go. Let's take a look at it. Vayikach Moshe es atzmos Yosef. Moshe took the bones of Yosef. Shemos 13:19. When the Jewish people were leaving the land of Egypt, Mitzrayim, so Moshe took the bones of Yosef because Yosef had made the Jewish people swear that they will take his bones many centuries later out of Egypt and bury them in Eretz Yisroel, the land of Israel. So Moshe took the bones of Yosef. So Moshe took the bones of Yosef to be reburied in Eretz Yisroel later on, when they got to Eretz Yisroel, the land of Israel. Shemos 13:19. A wise person will grab Mitzvos. Mishlei 10:8. This alludes to Moshe. For while the Jewish people were busy gathering the spoils of the Egyptians, Moshe was gathering Yosef's bones for reburial in Eretz Yisroel. Shemos Rabbah 20:19. How did the Midrash know that the pasuk in Mishlei was alluding to Moshe gathering Yosef's bones? Couldn't this pasuk be referring to any Jew at any point in history, quote, grabbing and performing mitzvos? In other words, it's when you're doing a mitzvah, it's like you're doing a precious thing. You're doing a mitzvah. You're grabbing it. It's like you're getting precious diamonds. You're grabbing the mitzvah. Upon closer inspection of the Midrash, another question arises. True, Moshe was performing a mitzvah by taking Yosef's bones for reburial in Eretz Yisroel. But the Jewish people were also performing a mitzvah by taking the spoils from the Egyptians. Hashem had specifically told Moshe, please go and tell the Jewish people to take the gold and silver vessels from the Egyptians. Why is Moshe's mitzvah considered to be greater than theirs? Here it says it's Brachos 9:8. It says it in that Talmud. So Hashem had told the people to, let's see, it says, Hashem told specifically Moshe, please go and tell the Jewish people to take the gold and silver vessels from the Egyptians. Why is Moshe's mitzvah considered to be greater than theirs? In other words, they both had mitzvahs to do. The Jewish people were taking the gold and silver vessels from the Egyptians in repayment for their slavery for all those many years. And this is something that Hashem had promised Abraham, that the Jews will be in slavery, and afterwards they will in Egypt, in Mitzrayim, and afterwards they will leave with great treasures. So anyway, The Jewish people also had a mitzvah to take the gold and silver vessels from the Egyptians. The key word here is mitzvos. It is in the plural. Mitzvos means many mitzvos, in the plural. Not one mitzvah, not only one mitzvah, but many mitzvos. Let us keep in mind that some types of mitzvos comprise a single act, while others involve a process of sequence, where the individual is fulfilling the given mitzvah on any ongoing. Where the individual is fulfilling the given mitzvah on an ongoing basis. Excuse me. For example, as the Ran points out, the mitzvah of returning a lost object is not only fulfilled when handing the object back to the owner. Here's the cited by the Rif Nimuke Yosef, Bava Metzia 16a. That's the footnote, the reference. So the mitzvah of returning the object is not only fulfilled when handing the object back to the owner, to its owner. In other words, you find an object that belongs to somebody, and while it's in your possession, you have in mind that you're going to give this object back to the person. So one might have to do a little bit of research where the person is, and just the fact that you have it in your possession, it's something that's not yours, and you have it in your possession, and you have intentions to return it to this other person. I have this object, and I'm going to return it to this person that it belongs to. So the whole time you have this object, it's a mitzvah. So in other words, you're doing a lot of mitzvos by having this object, and you with the intention of returning it to the person. So in other words, the Ran points out, the mitzvah of returning a lost object is not only fulfilled when handing the object back to its owner, rather it is constantly being fulfilled from the moment one picks up the object to the moment it is returned. So in other words, Moshe Rabbeinu was performing many mitzvos for 40 years. Now the Jewish people's mitzvah was performed in one go. Once they had taken the bounty, the mitzvah was over. But Moshe was wise. He grabbed mitzvos. His mitzvah began when he gathered Yosef's bones, but continued throughout the 40 years in the desert until Yosef was finally laid to rest in Eretz Yisroel. In other words, the whole time Moshe was in possession, had the bones of Yosef, and he had in mind, it was in a place of honor. They were in a place of honor, and he had in mind there was in an aron, in a special container for the bones, for Yosef's bones. So, in other words, and Moshe was taking care of this. So the whole time he had in mind to do this mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda, returning an object that should be someplace else, that Yosef should be interned in the land of Israel. So Moshe was doing a mitzvah for these 40 years. For all the 40 years he was working on this mitzvah of returning an object where it should be, to its rightful place. Hashavas Aveda. His mitzvah began when he gathered Yosef's bones, but continued throughout the 40 years in the desert until Yosef was finally laid to rest in Eretz Yisroel. This is how the Midrash knew that the pasuk was alluding to Moshe, for it contrasts the singular mitzvah act performed by the nation with the continuous mitzvah act performed by Moshe. So in other words, Moshe was doing something that for 40 years was a mitzvah. And it's considered a mitzvah, or many mitzvos, for all those 40 years. So that's why when they say, Vayikach Moshe es atzmos Yosef, Moshe took the bones of Yosef. So it says in Mishlei, a wise person will grab mitzvos. And then it says, this alludes to Moshe. For a while, the Jewish people were busy collecting the spoils of the Egyptians, the gold and silver. Moshe was gathering Yosef's bones for reburial in Eretz Yisroel Shemos Rabbah 2019. So this is Rav Zvi Kushlevsky on the Torah. A unique, in-depth, and inspirational approach to the weekly parsha from the world-renowned Rosh Yeshiva. So Rav Kushlevsky was, in the early 1970s, he was in the yeshiva of Chadera, where Rav Yaakov Galinsky was also, who wrote this sefer, who wrote his Divrei Torah, words of Torah, on the Torah for the 5 books of the Chumash. And then at the same time, Rav Binyamin Efrati was also there. He wrote this book, Itim, Times. He wrote various books on Svarim, on Torah subjects. So there were a lot of great Torah Talmidei scholars there, Talmidei Chachamim, at the yeshiva of Chadera. At that point, he wrote this book too, this sefer, Binyamin Efrati, Chazon HaGeula b'Mishnah Sarav Kook. He wrote this sefer also. Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for watching. See you next time. Take care.